Greetings folks, and the DJI Fly update has once again just been updated, this time to 1.6.9. And this comes hot on the heels of the 1.6.8 update which came out last week. However, that update was a substantial one. That was a major update. It included new features, it changed the interface, and it accompanied a new firmware update, in fact 2 new firmware updates for the Mini 3 Pro. Now 1.6.9 is not a major update, okay? Don't think you're going to be missing out on features if you choose not to get this one. There really isn't anything new. In fact, as far as the update notes are concerned, all it tells us is that there have been various stability fixes. So this is more of a bug fix rather than, a full update. That said, I did want to test it out and see if there have been any improvements that can be noticed in flight. As always, DJI themselves are not particularly forthcoming when it comes to exactly what kind of fixes have been put in place here. So that's why we need to do these things, these tests for ourselves. What I would say is, from my experience, and I've tested this update with both the Mini 3 Pro and with the Mini 2, is that there is really no need to rush to update, okay? I haven't noticed any particular improvements with 1.6.9. However, there has been one bug that has come to my attention. Now, a couple of people pointed this out to me yesterday, shortly after the update went live, so thank you for those that did. And I tested this out for myself, and indeed it does seem to be an issue with the Mini 3 Pro. And that is that the obstacle avoidance seems to not be functioning correctly when you have the 4K 60 setting option enabled, okay, on the camera. Now, don't panic, the obstacle avoidance does work, it just doesn't work as it's supposed to. I also had this strange issue with the autofocus, which you can see on the screen right now. There would be times when I'd be flying and just out of nowhere, even though autofocus was selected, the drone just took ages to actually focus, and I've not noticed this on previous updates. That one I managed to capture on screen recording so you guys could see it, but this happened a number of times, only with the Mini 3 Pro. It didn't happen with the Mini 2, but it is something that I want to point out to you. Anyway, going back to obstacle avoidance. So in 4K 30, with the obstacle avoidance set to bypass, everything works as it should. When you approach an obstacle that the drone detects, it moves away from that obstacle automatically. Okay, so as you can see me approaching the washing line here, that's not me lifting the drone above it or to the side of it. The drone is doing that to itself. I am frankly just flying directly towards it, and then the drone is avoiding it as it should be. Okay, so yeah, that's good. That's working as intended. Now, the problem comes in when we switch over, as I say, to 4K 60. So with the obstacle avoidance still in bypass mode, it actually treats it now as if it's in brake mode. Okay, all I've done is change the shooting frame rate to 60 FPS. But as you can see, now as I approach the obstacle, the drone is effectively braking rather than bypassing. It's stopping there automatically. That isn't me doing that. But you can see obstacle avoidance is still in bypass mode. Now, the brake functionality, the bypass functionality should still work in 4K 60. It was doing so before the update on 1.6.8, and I'm not sure why it's not doing it now. So by updating to 1.6.9, there is at least one bug that has crept into this that wasn't there previously. And as always with these updates, I do suspect there are others as well. But that's the big thing I found in terms of a reason why you might not want to update if 1.6.8 is functioning for you correctly and you're not having any issues with it. Because, as I say, 1.6.9 doesn't bring anything new to the table. Now, because this is an actual Fly App update and not a firmware update, 1.6.9 is not only relevant to the Mini 3 Pro, so I thought it's only fair that we get the Mini 2 out as well. And I have to say, just a brief note here, that the Mini 2, it's such a joy to fly. Even having flown the Mini 3 Pro now for several weeks, and don't get me wrong, I'm really enjoying doing so. But taking the Mini 2 back out its bag and opening up the legs and stuff and getting it ready to fly. It just reminds me how much I really, really do like this drone. And it is always going to be one of the classics, I feel. So what I'm doing now is I'm just taking the Mini 2 out to range here over some houses and stuff, some residential area, just to make sure that nothing bad has happened to the range, the transmission in this update. And I don't expect that to be the case. Now, there have been various transmission and range issues recently, and sadly, some of those haven't been resolved, although some of them have. However, if I can fly over these houses, then at least for the time being, I'm happy that nothing untoward has happened, at least in 1.6.9. Now, the update itself hasn't yet, as of the time of making this particular video, been pushed out to the RC controller. That's the controller that came with the Mini 3 Pro that has the screen. So I'm running these tests for both drones using the Mini 2's RC N1 controller. Now, I do start to lose some signal connection here at around 400 meters or so at a height of about 50 meters. And I know that will be disappointing to some of you. However, I wouldn't say it's anything different to what I normally experience, you know, prior to 1.6.9. So I don't think that 1.6.9 has introduced any additional transmission issues here. However, I am intrigued by the fact that despite losing transmission and flying over a high interference area, my controller is sticking with its guns and not moving from the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi band. Now, in this area, I usually would expect a 5.8 gigahertz band connection, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So, yeah, I'm not sure what that's about, but I can't see that being a 1.6.9 firmware update because that's usually to do with the hardware itself. But I really hope DJI can continue to get to the bottom of these issues that many of us have been having. My Mini 3 Pro is certainly flying much better than it was on the previous firmware update, so I'm happy about that. But like I say, not all of these issues have yet been resolved, so hopefully they'll get on the case there. One thing I do also like to do with a new update is just test that the batteries are working as they should be. Now, interestingly, I brought the Fly More kit for my DJI Mini 3 Pro. It was finally in stock at Amazon. And when I used the 2 batteries that came with that, the batteries themselves had to receive firmware updates. So I'm not sure exactly what that was about. I don't remember updating the firmware on the batteries in the Mini 2. So presumably the first battery I had has already had that firmware update for the Mini 3 Pro, and the other 2 have been brought up in sync with it. But I do like to test out these batteries just to make sure that there's been no software bugs that have come in to, you know, bring about maybe an indicator error, which has happened in the past on other updates. But to be honest with you, having flown on a full battery on the Mini 2, there doesn't seem to be any issues there. I'm still getting the full amount of flight time, and the indicator is still functioning normally, and it knows when to return to home depending on your distance travelled away from the home point, etc. Now, since I was running the battery down anyway, I took the opportunity just to test out all the various shooting modes with the Mini 2, just to make sure, again, that everything was functioning as it should be. And for the most part, it was. So here I am testing the 1080p 60 frames per second, which, to be honest with you, I really like, you know. I mean, it's a shame the Mini 2 can't film at 4K 60 as the Mini 3 Pro can. But, I mean, it still does a grand job. It can still shoot in 4K 30. And if you don't mind dropping the resolution, then you can still get that cinematic 60 FPS. Now, I'm not filming anything exciting here, just the road, you know, with a few cars and stuff. But I really like the way that this turned out. You can, with the Mini 2, get some incredible shots. You know, you really, really can. And yes, you have to be gentle with the control sticks, and I was just using normal mode here, not cine mode. But even so, I think this turned out really smoothly. And even though it was quite a windy day, the gimbal, it did its job. And even on the Mini 2, the gimbal does its job very, very well. And from looking at the footage itself, you can't tell that it was windy. You just can't, because the footage is so stable. However, there was one other bug which was a little bit annoying, and it has to do with the Quickshots. Now, for some reason, on 1.6.9 with the Mini 2, I never had this issue with the Mini 3 Pro, but with the Mini 2, the Quickshots would bug out, and I would get this warning message saying that it timed out. Now, I've not, or at least I don't remember experiencing this before, and it didn't happen all the time. I took about 6 or 7 Quickshots, and I think it was 2 or 3 of them that gave this warning message, and it always happened when the drone returned. Now, the actual recordings for the Quickshots were still on the memory card, and they still worked out as expected. But I'm not sure what was bringing this error message. It didn't really affect anything, so it's only a minor thing, but I do think it's something that's crept into 1.6.9. But outside of these few minor issues that I've spoken about, there hasn't really been any significant change when flying with 1.6.9 over when flying with 1.6.8. So yeah, I upgraded mostly, or updated rather mostly, for the fact that I wanted to make this YouTube video, but I wouldn't really say there's any real need to rush to do so yourselves. But if you have been flying on 1.6.9, then please do share your own experiences down below. And if you've encountered any other issues on top of what I've shown you today, then please do let us know. But thank you so much. Yeah, lovely shot of the toilets there. But thank you so much for stopping by and watching today's episode. I hope it's been helpful to you in some way. And if it has, please do stick around. You can subscribe to be notified of future content, and I'll be back with you for more DJI Mini 2 and Mini 3 videos going forward. Have a great day, folks, and thanks so much to all of you for watching. Goodbye.